Starting with 1,000 euros, we're ending with 15.6 thousand euros, a balanced drawdown of 10%, 81% win rate on short trades, 71% win rate on long trades, a total of 77% win rate overall. 18 consecutive wins amounting to 4,400 euros compared to 3 consecutive losses amounting to 500 euros. Equity drawdown of about 31%. This is a price reversal strategy, so it's only for experienced traders who know how to manage risk and protect their capital. So with no further shenanigans, let's start. The idea is to take trades when the market is in extreme conditions and then betting on a slight reversal from that point. On a higher time frame like 1 hour, we use the confluence of Bollinger Band and RSI to take trades. So when the price comes down and touches the 4 standard deviation lower Bollinger Band and the RSI is above 20, we take a buy trade. When the price touches the 4 standard deviation on the other side, the higher Bollinger Band, and the RSI is above 80, we take a sell trade. And then we trail the stop loss at 3 standard deviation. And the good part of trailing it with the Bollinger Band is that when the prices are not moving fast, the TP comes closer to the price. And when the prices are moving fast, the Bollinger Band opens up and the TP moves away to create more room for the price to move in our direction. So the dynamic TP helps us when the prices are moving in our direction, then the TP will move further away to give us more profit potential. And when the prices are becoming stagnant, the TP comes back closer until the time it's hit. This is how the strategy is used on higher time frame, like 1 hour. This is how I personally use it. However, in the new world of TikTok 15 seconds attention span, where we want everything yesterday, there is a way to use it on lower time frames as well, like 15 minutes or 5 minutes chart. But use it with a filter then. I personally have not used it with that configuration, so test it thoroughly before you decide to apply it. And this is where we apply some filters, so even though we are taking the trade betting on a reversal of the price, we're still on a higher time frame trading with the long period trend. So on 5 minutes chart, we might be taking the trade in the opposite direction of the price action. But on a daily chart, based on our filter criteria, we're still trading with the higher time frame. So this is how the strategy works. Either on a higher time frame where we don't apply the filters because number of trades are already very few, like 4 or 5 a month, or you're one for quick action, in which case we use the filters on higher time frame to qualify the trend and then only trade on 5, 10 or 15 minutes chart opposite to the price action. We run the backtest on 1 hour chart. We start from April 2020, not because it's the April Fool's Day, but because the first quarter of 2020 was completely nuts because of all of the COVID shenanigans. So we're going to put that past us and start from April 2020. We're going to use every tick based on real tick, and let's start with a balance of 1,000 euros. In the inputs tab, because it's a multi-currency year, so you can select more than one currency separated by commas, and the year is going to run the code in the background on every currency that you select here. We're going to use 4 standard deviation on Bollinger Band and RSI either 80 or 20 for our trading criteria. And we're going to take 0.02 lot size per 1,000 of capital. So as our capital grows, our lot size also grows automatically. Let's start. What we see is that the year builds up slowly and that it has long periods of nothing happening. And then there can also be periods of drawdown. For example, in August of 2022, when the UK economy tanked because of the gas crisis and also of the inflationary pressures. The good part is that these situations normally give indications for weeks or months before. So for example, the geopolitical situation between Russia and Ukraine, there were early signs from months before anything actually happened. Same goes for GBP crash in August of 2022 because of the inflationary pressures and the gas prices. Now the backtest results are very good, but we also saw that the equity drawdown is a bit on the higher side. The first way to reduce it is by using it on pairs which are not that volatile and having more currency pairs that move more sideways than in a super strong trend. In terms of a list, in my personal opinion is this. The super volatile currencies are JPY and GBP, mid-range US dollar, euro and CHF, and then on the low volatility side, Canadian dollar, Australian dollar and New Zealand dollar, in that order. So you can pair up these combos and then reduce the risk through diversification by having some volatile currencies, but then also having a balance on the other side. The second way you can reduce the drawdown is by bringing the TP closer. So going 2 standard deviation instead of 3 standard deviation, because then the TP is going to be hit more. Of course, the easiest way to reduce the risk is to reduce the lot size per 1,000 account capital. Let's run the test and see how different the results are. Obviously, since we reduced the lot size, the profit percentage also came down. But then we also have the balance drawdown that came down. And also the equity drawdown. We still have 18 consecutive wins, though they are not amounting anymore to 4.3 thousand euros. But also on consecutive losses side, the value is down from 500 to only $62. But please remember, reducing risk in an open reversal EA is the most important aspect. Now, this EA is not for you. If you believe that you will become a millionaire overnight, if you believe that EAs make money every day, every week, every month, every quarter, if you believe that EAs only make money and they never lose, if you're greedy and want big profits in the shortest possible time, if you're not an experienced trader, because this is an open-ended reversal strategy, if you're not patient, because this EA is not a day trading EA, it opens up a few positions a month, if you don't understand diversification and correlation between different currency pairs and different asset classes, if you don't read the news and don't follow global events and don't understand how geopolitical events or economic policies can impact currencies, and you don't really understand the concept of risk management and capital protection, or even the diversification and portfolio management so that even when some EAs lose money, the others can make up for it. And you're just looking for financial freedom and you're looking for the EA to do everything for you. So if you're still here and believe that this EA is for you, no more shenanigans, let's get to coding. We start in the same way by going to the IDE. And here within the YouTube folder, I'm creating a new expert advisor. Let's call it Bollinger-RSI reversal. And here we have the opening template. I'll clean it up. So we're left with only three functions. The onIt functions, which is the initialization function. So all the codes written here are going to be run whenever the EA is initialized. So whenever you attach it or you start running the backtest, that's when all the codes here are going to be run only once. Then you have the deinitialization. So when you remove the EA from the chart or when the backtest stops, before it stops, it's going to run the codes written here. And then the OnTick function, which is a generic function that comes in MQL, which is on every tick this function is going to be run. So when there is a price change and a new price tick arrives into the MQL, all the codes written here in between these two curly brackets are going to be run. We're of course going to be doing some trading operations, and MQL makes that very easy by giving us the possibility to reference to this file in the include folder here, the trade and trade.mqh, which comes with MQL, and it already has a lot of pre-written codes that we can use to make the trading operations, calling them easier. So I'm going to use three classes. The ctrade class, which is going to be used to open positions, modify positions, close positions. And I'm assigning this class to a variable by the name of trade. The second one is cPositionInfo, and this class is used to get information on the open position. So if there's a position open and you want to know what its take profit value is or what its magic number is, this class is what you can use. I'm assigning this class to a variable and I'm calling that variable positionInfo. And the third class is cOrderInfo, which, like the positionInfo class, is used to get information on the orders which are currently sitting on the broker. So for example, if you have put a stop order or a limit order, then you can get all the information about those orders by using this class cOrderInfo. And I'm assigning this class to a variable OrderInfo. I don't think that we're going to use the cOrderInfo class here, but I'm just a habit of me to include all three. Then of course this EA is going to be based on Bollinger Bands and RSI. So we need to create a reference to the indicators and trend.mqh class, which you can find here in indicators. And these are trend-based indicators. So they are here in the trend.mqh file. So from there, I'm going to use this class of CI bands, and I'm assigning it to two variables. The first one is Bollinger that we're going to use to open trades. And then the second one I'm creating as TP Bol, which we're going to use to assign TP values, take profit values. And then for the RSI, I'm going to reference to the file here in indicators in oscillators, because RSI is an oscillator. So we are now referencing to oscillator. And from there, we're using this indicator class CI, RSI, and I'm assigning it to the RSI variable. Then let's create some variables. So the first group of variables that I'm going to create is EA specific variables. For example, what the magic number for the EA is going to be. So I'm creating a ulong type of variable. Ulong is basically numbers, but very big numbers.
And I'm assigning it an initial value, but the user can change it because it's an input variable. All these three are input variables, so user has the possibility to change them. Whatever you write after the 2 forward slashes appears into the input tab when you're actually running the EA. And for this, I'm gonna say currencies for the EA, and then the time frame, because we want the user to specify what time frame they're gonna run this on. Because for example, when they're here, they might wanna change from a 1-hour chart to 15-minute chart to look at something, and we don't want the EA in the background to get confused. So if the EA already has a specified time period, which let's say in our case, we say period H1, so 1-hour chart, then no matter what time frame is selected here, the EA in the background is always going to be running on the 1-hour chart because that's what the user has specified. Let's compile it. And then if I go to MetaTrader, I will see here in the YouTube our EA, the Bollinger-RSI. And if I drag it to the strategy tester and go to the inputs, now I can see that the first 3 variables that we have just created are here with the default values as we have put here. Then the next group I'm going to create are trade settings. So everything that the user has to specify for the Bollinger Bands and RSI inputs, so that when we test our trade opening criteria, these are the values that these indicators are going to be run on. So I'm starting with Bollinger Band moving average period. Normally it is 20 for Bollinger Band, but for the sake of this year, I'm starting with 200. That's what I use personally. Then what's the standard deviation for the Bollinger Band to open the trades, as we've already seen in the strategy. So I'm starting with 4. Then what's the RSI upper and lower level, because that's the second criteria for the strategy. So when the price hits the upper band, we want the RSI to be above 80. And when the price hits the lower Bollinger Band, we want the RSI to be below 20. And then for the RSI, what period? I mean, we're using the default, but if the user wants to change it, then they at least have the flexibility to change it. If I compile it and we go back, then now here we see that all of these variables have also appeared here, and now user has the ability to change these. Then the third set of input groups that we're going to create for the user to specify are, once the trade has opened, what happens next? The first one is when we open the trade, what type of lot size does the user want? Does he want a fixed one, or does he want a lot size that increases as the capital increases? Now we're going to create 2. So I'm going to go back to the top, and here we're going to create an enum. We create an enum whenever we want the user to select from a drop down. So we create an enum and we call it lot type. And then there are 2 values that he can select from. So the first one is lot per 1K capital, which we're assigning the value of 0. And then the fixed lot size, which we're assigning the value of 1. And because we have now created this enum, we can assign this enum as input lot type and then assign it to a variable by the name of lot type. And our default position is going to be 0, which is the lot size per 1K capital. Then if he selects the lot type 0, then he needs to specify here what lot size does he want for every 1,000 of capital. And if he selects here 1, which is fixed lot, then he needs to just specify what is the fixed lot, and then regardless of the capital value, we always use that. Then for the TP, as we have already seen in the strategy, the TP is also at the upper or lower Bollinger Band, but that Bollinger Band can be different. So you could open the trade at Bollinger Band standard deviation 4, but set the TP at standard deviation 2. So we're giving that flexibility to the user to specify whether he wants the same or he wants to have different. And then once the trade has been opened for a currency, then we also not want to open another trade for how many bars. Now what can happen is the EA is going to open too many trades on the same candle because the price is above the Bollinger Band. So on every tick, it's going to open up a trade. So we want a gap. So the price needs to come back or spend some time in the market before it comes back and touches again the upper or lower Bollinger Band and the RSI value. Then only we take the second trade. Now this is not a great strategy. What we're saying is that every time this condition happens, that the upper or lower Bollinger Band is touched by the price and the RSI is above and below 80 and 20, we want the trade. So it is opening a trade because those criteria are met again. So we're not creating a grid. We're just disregarding whether there is already an open position. And every time that condition is true for our trade to be open, we're opening the trade. So we're going to use this variable bar since to say how many bars since the last time a trade has been opened does the EA open a trade again, at least how many bars. And then you could make it an input for the user to select, but it's so generic. So what's the applied price for the Bollinger Band? And normally, I mean, high, low, or median price. I mean, I normally prefer median price. If you want to make it an input variable for the user, you can also put it as input. And then it's going to be an input variable. I would like to leave it as a non-input. So we just apply the median prices. So these are the variables that we're going to need. So if I compile now and we go back to MetaTrader, what we can see here is that the trade management options are also here. And this one, because we created as an enum, now the user has the ability to select between fixed lot size or lots per 1K capital. And then he has to specify that if it's fixed, how many lots, and if it is per 1,000 capital, and let's say 2, that every 1,000 capital, it needs to be 2. And it's rounded, so it's not going to be exactly $2,000 before the 0.2 comes into the picture. Then we go to the initialization section, and here we start with using our trade variable from the top and setting the magic number for the EA, assigning the input magic number that we have collected from the user here. Then the second thing I'm going to do is I do not like to see these grids on the chart. They just look ugly to my eyes. So I'm going to say set the chart grid as false by using the chart set integer function, which comes with MQL. That's for the initialization. We don't need any code for the deinitialization. And then we go on to the OnTick function. On the later part of the coding, we're going to modify this EA to become a multi-currency EA. So you can specify many currencies here separated by comma, and then the EA is able to run it. So even though you attach the EA to only one chart, the EA actually runs on the number of currencies that are provided here. So we're going to change it to multi-currency later, but I will first create the EA as a single currency and then make the modification required to make it a multi-currency. That way we can keep it neat, and that way it's easier to follow. But one thing that I'm going to do is at the beginning, I'm just going to say that there is a variable, and it's a string variable, so it can store text. And I'm going to call it symbol. And the value of the symbol is going to be whatever is the symbol on the chart. This to make it so we don't have to use the symbol every time, but we're going to use this symbol variable. But it will mean, at least for the single currency chart, that it is equal to whatever chart it has been applied on. Then we don't want to run this EA on every tick because it's going to be too much. So we only want to run it on every new candle. And this is where we're going to create a separate function, and we're creating a bool function. A bool function returns the value of either true or false. So we're going to call it isNewBar. So we can call it and we can check whether it is a new bar. And the way to do that, if you've followed the videos before, and I have a separate video in my channel as well, which goes into details, but it's basically starting with the previous time equals 0. Then we check the current time. And if the current time is different from the previous time, that means there is a new candle. And if there is a new candle, then we return the value true. But before we return the value true, we set the previous time to current time so that the next time the EA comes back here on the same candle, then the previous time is equal to the current time. So the EA returns false. And only when a new candle arrives and the EA comes here, then of course the current time is going to be different because it's going to be a new bar and we're getting the time of the newest bar. And it's going to be different from the previous time, so it will return true. But before returning true, it will again set the previous time to current time. So it's only going to return a true when there is a new candle. Now, more details in the video on the channel if you want to go check it out. So now that we have that function, we can use that function here. And we say that if it is not a new bar, this is a not sign. So if it is not a new bar, then return. And return means exit the function, don't do anything else, don't run the codes below. And in this way, we basically are creating two sections. The section above, every code written here is going to be run on every tick. And all the codes written after this statement are only going to be run on a new candle. And this is where majority of our codes are going to be run. Now I'm leaving a little bit of a space here because later on, we're going to change this function, modify it from multi-currency. So I want to leave a little bit of a space here in between. So I'm starting a little bit below. And the first thing I do is this variable that we created here and assigned it the CI bands. I initialize it by saying Bollinger is the new CI bands. And then we can create the Bollinger by saying use the symbol, so whatever is the chart value, use the time frame specified by the user, Use the Bollinger MA period for the moving average input, the standard deviation assigned by the user here, and the applied price which comes from here. So create that, and in the same way we create the RSI by using the RSI variable that we created at the top here, assigning it the indicator class of RSI. We say that RSI variable is new CI RSI, and then RSI.create with the symbol value, the time frame value, the RSI period value that the user has provided here, and the applied price, which basically means the median price. Once we have created these two, then we need to refresh both of them. So we say RSI refresh with a flag value of -1. Don't ask me why it is -1, it's just -1. If somebody knows why it is -1, I would love to know. So leave a comment. I mean, I would be very happy to increase my knowledge and finally put this mystery behind me. But this is -1. And then it's the same way we refresh the Bollinger value and providing it a flag of -1. Then we create a few variables within the OnTick function because we're only going to use it within the OnTick function. So I don't want to create it as a global variable. The first one is a double, and double can store decimals. And we are asking for ask price and the bid price by using the symbol info double function that comes with MQL, sending the information of the symbol and asking for the ask price and the bid price. And then I want the closing price of the last candle. So I'm calling it close x1. And we use the function iClose, providing it the value of the symbol and the time frame, and that we want the value for the last bar. So the current bar is 0, and then the last bar is 1, and the bar before is 2, and so on and so forth. Once we have that, then we say if the closing price of the last candle is below the Bollinger band lower, and this because we created the new Bollinger here. So once you type Bollinger and hit dot, it's going to open up all of the values or all of the options available. And from here, we select lower because we are interested in getting the value of the lower band for a buy. And then which candle do we want it for? We want it for the last candle. So I provide the value of 1. And we say that the bars now, so now whatever is the bar number is greater than whenever was the last time the bar was traded, plus the bar since. And this is where we're going to need these two variables. So I'm going to create them here. Now, here we're going to calculate the bars now. And for now, I'm going to put this as a comment because this is what we're going to need for when we convert this into a multi-currency EA. And for now, I'm just going to go up. I'm going to create an integer variable here as bars last traded, and I'm going to start it as 0. So creating it as a global variable for now. So as long as 100 candles have passed since the last time we placed a trade, which is what we're checking here as bars now by getting the number of bars currently on the chart by sending the symbol info for the time frame. So we get that value so we can check it. And then the last condition we have is that the RSI main, and this again like the Bollinger, once you put RSI and hit dot, it opens up all of the options that are available to you. And we're interested in getting the value of the main line of RSI. So we're saying main, and we want it for the last candle. You can get it for the current candle, you can get it for the last candle as well. Is lower than 20. Then, and this is what we're saying by opening the bracket, then create a variable TP as a double variable, and we assign it the value of the upper Bollinger band because we're going to go for a buy trade. So in that case, we're saying that the Bollinger upper band of the second Bollinger band based on whatever value the user has provided here. So the user has the ability to select a different standard deviation for the TP than for taking the trades. So we use that and assign that value to the TP. And then we send the buy order by using the trade variable by saying trade. And when you hit dot, it will open up all of the values we want to buy. And when we say buy, and then you hit the bracket open, it asks for the volume, it asks for the symbol, it asks for what price, what stop loss, what TP, and if there is any comment that you want to put. So we're going to send it the lots. We're going to send it the value of the current symbol. We want the buy on the current price. We don't want to send any stop loss. We send the TP as here, and we don't send any comment. And then we set the value of the bars last traded by assigning it the whatever is the current value of the bars. And by the way, I forgot here should be a 0 as well, and that is the bars now. And this way, when the EA comes back again, and even if this condition is true and this condition is true, the bars now is not going to be greater than the bars last traded until the time that the 100 bars have passed. And then we close the function. And then we do the same thing for the sell. So we say if the close of the last candle is higher than the upper band and the bars now is greater than the last traded bars and 100 bars since, and the RSI is greater than 80. And then if all of these values are true, we set the TP to the lower Bollinger band of the second Bollinger band. And then we sell by sending the lot size, the symbol, the current price, no stop loss, and the TP value that we have created here, and no comment. And then again, we set the last traded bar to the current bar. And then we close the function. Now, one thing that we haven't defined here is the lots. So we come back up here, and the first thing we check is what's the account balance. And we get that by using the function available in MQL as account info double and asking for the account balance. And then we create a variable, and let's call it lots. That's the one that we're going to use here as a double, so you can store decimal in it. We start with a default value of 0.01, so in case if something goes wrong in the formula, we at least have 0.01. And then we switch the lot type, and switch basically means go through all of the various options. So here in the lot type, which was this lot type variable, which is the enum we created here, and it had two different values, 0 for the lot per 1K capital and 1 for fixed lot. So here we say that switch through it, so run through all the cases. And if the case is 0, if 0 is selected, then lots is going to be equal to whatever is the lot size per 1000 that the user has defined, multiply by account balance divided by 1000 to get the value of the lot size, and then normalize it by reducing it down to 2 decimals and providing the value of 2, which is the number of decimals that we want it to. And then if the case was 0, then, and if you get this value, then just break. So exit this, do not run this. But if case was not 0, and then if it's case 1, then the user wants a fixed lot type, then in that case, lots is going to be equal to whatever lot size the user has defined here as fixed lot size. So this is how we define the lot size, and this is the lots variable that we're going to be using here. So this concludes for the single currency, our OnTick function. So if I compile, I'm getting an error that the bar last traded is in bars. It should be bars last traded. That is the variable that we'll define up here. And if I compile again, I'm getting an error that I bars wrong parameters count. We don't need this because I bar returns the value of the current candle anyways. So we don't need to provide the value of the candle number. And here it should also be bars last traded. And if I compile again, I still have here the wrong, and then sign mismatch. Let's change this to integer as well. So now we don't have, because it was looking at bars now was a U long, while the bars last traded and the bars since were integers, so there was a mismatch. And if we change it down to integer as well, so now we have the correct. So now we compile and we don't have any error. Now one change that I'm going to make for now is we're going to set the TP back to Bollinger lower and Bollinger higher, because we have only initialized the Bollinger. We haven't initialized the TP Bol anywhere so far. So I cannot use that. So for now, I'm going to go for Bollinger upper and Bollinger lower. And if I compile it now, I don't have any error. So we can run the test to see if our codes are working. So let's see very quickly. I think we have a sell order and we should have a TP here. So the TP has been set on the Bollinger lower and the price and the sell was opened here when we touched the higher Bollinger band and the RSI was above 80. Now let's look for a buy order. Here, I think the RSI was not below 80. So here the RSI was below 80, the RSI was below 20. And this is why the TP has been set here and the trade has been opened here on the higher Bollinger Band and the lower Bollinger Band. So whatever codes we have written so far, they're working. And now, of course, we want to trail the TP. So we have to write a function for the trailing stop loss. So I'm writing a function, trail stop loss, and we're going to send to it the value of the symbol. Because eventually when it's going to be multi-currency, we're going to have to send the value of whatever symbol to the trailing stop. So only that is going to be impacted. And here we start by now using the TP bol, because we're going to trail on whatever is the second Bollinger Band value that the user has selected. So we assign a new CI band to it. And this time we create the TP bol by providing it the symbol value that's going to come here on the time frame, the same Bollinger MA period, but this time as TP bol standard deviation. So this is the variable on which the trade is going to be open, and this is the variable on which the TP is going to be trailed. And then we refresh it, and then we loop through a for, and we go how many positions are open currently, -1, assign that value to I, because I goes from 0 all the way to whatever, and positions total go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if there are 4 positions open, then it's going to be I equals to 0, 1, 2, and 3 for 4 positions. And as long as I is greater than or equal to 0, and every time reduce the value of the I by 1. So if there are 4 positions open, then start at 3, then go 2, then go 1, and then go 0. Then for whatever is the index on that iteration, select the position, and this is where we're using the variable that we created above as position info. Select that position by index I, get its ticket number, and get its TP as position.info.takeprofit and position.info as .ticket. And then look through what type of TP it is by switching. And then we're switching through the position type. And we're saying if it's a case buy, position type is buy, then the TP is going to be the upper band. And if it is the position type is sell, then the TP is going to be the lower band. And in each case, if you find it to be the case this, then after doing this break, don't do this. And if you don't find this, then go to this line, but in that case, break here as well. And then if whatever position we have selected here, if the symbol value of that is equal to our symbol, what we are sending here, and the magic number is our magic number that we have created at the top in the global variables, then we know that this is our position of this year and on the same currency that we are currently have it on the chart. And in that case, we want to modify the position by sending it the ticket number that we have collected here, not changing the stop loss, and changing the new value of the TP of the second Bollinger Band. Here is the entire function in one screen. So if you want to follow the steps and code it correctly, because there are quite a lot of open parentheses and closing parentheses and you want it to be all right. Now that we have created this function, we need to call this function. So from here on the OnTick, below the is new bar. So whenever we start on a new candle, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trail the stop loss by sending it the value of the symbol, which in case of a single currency is the symbol that it is attached on the chart. Compiling again, no error. So let's run the test and see. And now when the position opens, it's going to open the TP at the bottom. But then as this closer EA, which is the 3 standard deviation, it was trailing on that and it closed the value here. Same, let's look for the buy. It will open on the 4 standard deviation and it will trail the TP on the 3rd standard deviation as the user has defined. So we're waiting for the buy order now. And here is the buy order. And as you can see, now the trailing stop is going or is trailing. Now the trailing TP is trailing on the 3rd, on the 3 standard deviation Bollinger Band. So the code is working as we intended for single currency. And now we need to convert it into a multi-currency setup. And this is why we left the space here. I'm going to convert everything down here as a separate function. and I'm going to call this function as run symbols function, and we're going to send to it the symbol value. Now, because I've created this here, so now this opening bracket that I've created here is getting closed here. So OnTick function now has unbalanced parentheses. There is an opening parenthesis, but there is no closing parentheses. So I'm going to put a parenthesis here, and I'm going to compile it just to see that there are no errors. So now on every new bar, we're going to need to send the currency of the currency down to the run symbol so that everything, all of the codes here, and then the trailing stop can be run for whatever is the currency selected at that point in time. Now I'm going to need 3 different variables for that. And I'm going to create these 3 variables here at the bottom. The first variable that I'm going to create is currencies, which is going to be an array. An array is a variable that can store more than one value, because that's where we're going to assign the values of these currencies, and it's going to be more than one. Then the second thing is that we're going to use the bars traded. So when was the last time that we took a trade on that symbol is going to be different. As an example, if you have 2 currencies, GBP USD and USD JPY, and if you have taken a trade on GBP USD, then you need to store the last traded bar for GBP USD separately from USD JPY. So there we're going to create another array variable, and this array is going to have 2 dimensions: the currency, and then corresponding to that currency, the value of the bar when the last trade had been taken against that currency. So I'm creating an array variable, but it's going to have 2 dimensions. The first dimension is going to be a dynamic one, and the second dimension is going to be a constant one. And then we need to separate the currencies by some sort of a separator, and here we're using the comma. So I'm setting the separator equals comma. With these 3 variables, we come back down to the initialization function, and the first thing we do is we get the separator code, because MQL does not understand a comma. It has a code for it, 0246 or whatever the code is. I don't remember what the code is, but it is a number. So we're going to store that number, and this is why we are creating an integer variable as separator code. And we're getting the character for that symbol by passing on the comma value that we had stored here and asking for the character to be returned back. And that's going to be stored here. Then the second thing we're going to do, we're going to split the string of the variable current, which we created here, and it has all of the values separated by comma. So we're going to split it by using the separator code of comma and store those separated values into the array that we created here as currencies. So instead of now as one string, it's going to be put into this currency variable as GBP, as USD JPY as the first variable, then the second variable as GBP USD. Now this string split function, it returns the value of how many values was this function able to split. And in our case, it's going to be 2. And we want to store that value of 2 because there are 2 currencies here. It could be 3 if you have 3 currencies, but in our case, it's 2. So we want to store the value of that 2 into this variable k, because we're going to use that to resize the array, because one of this variable here, one of this parameter here was a dynamic array, and we need to make it a static array as well before we can store values into it. But at this point in time, we did not know how many currencies there are going to be, so we couldn't make it static. But now when we initialize the year, we know that there are 2 currencies that the user has put. So now we can make it static by saying that we need to resize the array of bars traded and make the dynamic portion of it and fix it to the value of k, which was returned by the string split function. So make it 2. So now we have a static array of 2. So it will have 2 values on x dimension, and it will have 2 values on y. And you will see it very soon. And then we loop through whatever is the value of the k. So there are 2 currencies, so we loop through I equals k minus 1, again because of the fact that I goes from 0. So if there are 2 values, then we want to go 0 and 1. And as long as I is bigger than 0 or equal to 0, every time reducing it by 1. So start at the value of k minus 1. So start at 1, 2 minus 1. Do this loop and then come back and then make the I equals to 0 and then do this loop. And in that loop, we set the values. So for whatever is the index, the first one, the x-axis, we say put the value of I, and then on the 0, meaning like, okay, because the array will have 2 values, the currency and then the numbers of bars traded. So for now, we say that the first values, so 0 value, set it to the currencies from this currencies array, whatever is the index now, and then set the second value as, for now, just store the value of I in it. And just to see what we have written here, if it is doing what it was supposed to do, let's put an array print of the bars traded, and let's hit the play button. And here in the journal, on the initialization, now we can see that the array has been set as, on this side, on this axis, the 0 is USD JPY, our first currency, and 1 is GBP USD, our second currency. And then on the y-axis, on the 0 position is our currency, and on the position number 1 is, for now, we are storing the value of whatever the index was at that point in time, so 0 and 1. But later on, we're going to store the value of the bars traded here. So this way, we can then store the value of the last bar traded against USD JPY into this space and GBP USD into this space. So every time that we are checking that the number of bars now is greater than the numbers of the bars last traded, we can check it for that particular currency. So this is working. So now we can come back to the OnTick function. And here we had the symbol equals to symbol. And because we're going to change it for multi-currency, so we're going to delete this. So it's only if there is a new bar, then do this. And if it's not a new bar, return, meaning exit. And below this, we're going to write, or we're going to do a loop through the array size of the currency. So how many currencies are there? 2. So we're going to set the value of I to 2 minus 1, so equals to 1, because I goes from 0 and 1. So there are 2 values. And then as long as it's bigger than 0 or equal to 0 by reducing it every time. So it's going to run 1 iteration and then 0 iteration. Run through the symbols of using whatever is the currency's position I, which in our case was GBP USD. And then when it will run 0, then in our case, it was USD JPY. So now what we're doing is we're running the symbol from here by sending the value of the symbol by selecting it through the loop. So on every time there is a new candle, on the first tick, the EA is going to come here because it's a new candle is going to come here. It's going to run through this array. Then it's going to send the first currency to this run symbol function, which is going to then act as OnTick function and run all of the codes as if it's a single currency setup, exactly the same way as we had written before. Then it's going to come back here, run through the loop again, select the second currency, then send it to the run symbol again as a symbol. And then the run symbol is going to run it all the way again as if it was a single currency EA. So this is how we first create the EA as a single currency and then change it into a multiple currency by using the sending the symbol method and writing all of the codes as if we're going to send a symbol to the function later on. Now, one more change that we're going to have to make is that we last time said bars last traded equals to I bar symbol. But if we store it into a static variable of one value only, then later on, we're not going to be able to say which currency was it stored against. So we need 2 more functions. The first one is set the bars traded, where we're going to be setting that variable array 2-dimensional that we have created, the value of the bar. We're going to send it the symbol. So whatever is the current symbol, that is, we're running through the iteration, we're going to send it the symbol. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go through the array size currencies again. So run through all of the currencies. And then let's get the target symbol as whatever is whenever there is the first iteration, the second iteration, third iteration, get the value of the bars traded I for the 0 index, so get the currency because we stored the currencies on 0. And then on 1, we stored the value of the bars. Get the value of that currency, put it into target symbol, then get the bars now. So whatever is the bars for the symbol, which we are going through the iteration, for the time frame. And then if the target symbol equals to symbol, so when it's running through that loop of currencies, and when it finds our currency, then set the value of the first value. So not the 0 value, but the first value as integer to a string bars now, this. So whatever bars is on that symbol, get that value and then set it to against that currency into the first place on the second dimension. And I'm changing it from integer to a string because we created the variable here as a string. So I need to change it into a string. But when we will get the value, we'll convert it back from a string into an integer. So this is how we will set the bars. And then when we will need the bars, we're going to do exactly the same thing. This time we're creating a function of get the bars, and let's make it integer. Otherwise we're going to have a mismatch. So get the bars by sending it the symbol. And then we say start with bars last traded as 0. And then again, loop through the currencies array, get the symbol of whatever is the index currently. So when you're looping through, get the value of the currency, put it into a variable called target symbol. And if the target symbol is equal to the symbol that we are sending, so when you're looping through the currencies, as soon as you find our currency, get the value of the last bars traded as a string to integer, whatever has been stored here on I1. So on that position, 1, whatever has been set, get it, put it here, and then return this. And because we're going to be sending an integer, so we need to change it from string to integer because we stored the value here as a string. And now when we're returning it back, we want it as an integer. So I'm changing it from a string to integer, and I'm returning it back. Don't worry, we're going to loop through it and you're going to see how it all works. So now that we have these two functions, I can go back up here and now come back here and I delete this and replace it with set bars traded and sending it the symbol value. So whenever we take the trade, we call the function of set bars, send it the symbol value so that it can look for that symbol, what is the current bar number, and then set it into that two-dimensional array against that currency. And same here, we set bars traded when we're taking a sell. And then for this check, where we're checking the last bars traded, we also now have to modify it for the multi-currency setup. And this is where those two hashes that I've put, I'm going to remove this. And now, and let's call it integer as well, so we don't have a mismatch. That the last bars traded, in that case, get the last bar traded by sending the symbol to this function that we have set, so that we send it the symbol and it gets the value of whatever is stored in the second dimension against that currency. This is how we set the bars, and then later on get the bars by using looping through those currencies array. Now if I compile it, now I get the declaration of this hides the global variable because we set a global variable up here for the single currency, which we don't need now. So I'm going to delete it. And then if I compile, I'm getting the error that bars last traded is undeclared. So this variable is undeclared. So I declared it as bar last traded. So let's change it to bars last traded. And if I compile, then I don't have any error, but there are two warnings. Look, I mean, it's a warning, but I don't think it's going to create any problems for us. I don't know where is the long. If somebody can see where the long is, let me know in the comment section, because we are creating it as integer. We are creating it as integer here as well. And I am converting it from string to integer. So I don't really see any problem. Anyways, so let's run the test and see if it works. The first thing I'm going to see is that yes, I have the two dimension as USD and JPY as 1 and 0. And these are the values which we are going to change. Now we have both the charts opening up, GBP USD and USD JPY. So let's wait for a trade. And here we have the first trade. So now there must be a set of the bars for GBP USD. So now I'm going to come back here and put a stop at bars now, because I want to see for the symbol what is the bar. If I resume here, I see now that the symbol value is GBP USD. And if I look at the bars traded for that, it has a value of 75,607. And let's go one step forward so that we can get the value of the bars now for GBP USD. And the current value of the bars is 75,769. So this was where the trade was taken. So roughly around 100 candles probably. And this is what I see here is roughly around 100 candles. Now, I don't know if USD JPY has not had a trade yet. So let's remove this. And then we press the play until we get a USD JPY trade as well. So here it was a trade. So I can pause it now because there was a trade on USD JPY as well. And now if I come back here and I'm going to put the break here again. And if I resume now, then I'm seeing for the GBP USD, the last traded bar was 75,607. And if I press the play, the next time it comes back as a USD JPY, and there is a different value, 75,499. So the code is working okay. And now we have both of the currencies working. So for the USD JPY, the trade is being opened on the 4 standard deviation Bollinger, and the TP is being trailed on the 3 standard deviation. And for GBP USD as well, the trade opened on 4, and the trailing stop loss is working on the 3 standard deviation. So the multi-currency codes are working fine now. Now you can go back here, and in the input tab, you can add more currencies if you want. So for example, if you added Euro JPY, and let's do a very quick test again. And now we have 3 currencies open here, GBP USD, Euro JPY, and USD JPY. In which case GBP USD, again, we have already checked. So let's check the Euro JPY as well until we have a trade. And here, and no. And here we have a trade where the trade opened up on the 4 standard deviation and the TP is coming on the 3 standard deviation. Now, if it works for one currency, it's going to work for multiple currencies. So you can put as many values that you want. Now, when you're backtesting, it will require the EA, all of the history of all of those currencies, and then run all of those. So it might become a little bit too much. So when you're doing a backtest, maybe it's a good idea to do 10 currencies at one, and then another 10, and then another 8, or whichever way you want. If your computer is really good with a lot of capacity and RAM, then you might be able to get away with all 28 currencies at once. Now, the last thing that remains is to apply the filters. And in this case, I normally like to apply MA filter or Ichimoku filter. We go back to Meta Editor and we go back up to the top where we created this. Now, we need also the Ichimoku and the moving average indicator custom class, and those come into trend because these are trend-based indicators. So I'm creating a class for Ichimoku and for moving average, assigning the class of Ichimoku to the variable Ichimoku, and for the moving average I'm creating 2 variables, the fast moving average and the slow moving average. Let's call it moving average fast and moving average slow. Then I come back down here into the variable section, and up top we're going to create another enum because we're going to need an enum for that drop down where we give our user the ability to select whether he wants the price above cloud to be the buy filter, price above Tenkan Sen, price above Kijun Sen, price above Senkun Sen, price above Senkun Sen B, Tenkan Sen to be above Kijun Sen, Tenkan Sen to be above Kijun Sen, and both of them to be above the cloud, Tenkan Sen to be above the cloud, and Kijun Sen to be above the cloud would be the value 8. So we create that enum, and then down below here, we create one input group for the moving average filter. So where the user can say whether or not it's true. By default, it's false. Then in case if he turns it on, then what is the time frame for the moving average? What would be the value for the slow moving average? What would be the value for the fast moving average? What would be the mode of the moving average? And what would be the applied price of the moving average? And then for Ichimoku filter, again, the same thing. We ask the user whether or not it's on. And then if it is on, then he needs to select from that IC type, which we have created here, the enum of which type of filter he wants to apply, whether he wants the price to be above the cloud, below the cloud, Tenkan Sen to be above Kijun Sen, and etc., etc. What's the time frame? And then the value, which is the default value of 9, 26, and 52. But if the user wants to change it, he can. Then we come down to the run symbol function. And after the trailing of the stop loss and assigning the Bollinger Band values, then we create these variables, the fast moving average and the slow moving average, as double, and just assign it the value of 0 for now. And then Senko span A, Senko span B values, Tenkan-sen value, and the Kijun-sen value, because these are the 4 values that we're going to need for the filter, and assign it the value of 0 for now. Then we say that if the MA filter is on, and you can write this like this, but if you just leave it like if MA filter on, then the default way of MQL checking it, if it's checking for a true value. So if the MA filter on value is true, so the user has selected it, in that case, we have to start the slow and the fast moving average variables that we created above by assigning them the value of whatever is the symbol, the time frame, the slow moving average period and the fast moving average period, the mode, which is EMA, and the applied price. And then we refresh it, both of them, the slow and the fast. And then we assign the value of the fast moving average and the slow moving average to these variables above here by getting the main value from the, if you write moving average fast and then hit dot, and then hit dot, it opens up all of the options for you. So we are interested in getting the main line for the last candle, and then the same for the slow moving average variable that we created. And then again, we're asking for the main line. So this is how we will get the values, which we can then later on pass on to the filters. And then we do the same thing for Ichimoku. So we say if the Ichimoku filter is on, then start the Ichimoku or by assigning to the variable that we created above in the variable section as a new indicator class Ichimoku. And then we create that Ichimoku by providing it the Ichimoku time frame, the Tenkan-sen, Senko-sen, and Kijun-sen value, and then refreshing it, and then getting the value of Sen A, Sen B, Tenkan-sen, and Kijun-sen lines by again going Ichimoku, and if you hit dot, then all of the options open up, and you can see here that this option is available here, Senko span A, Senko span B. So we want Senko span A, and you can get it for the last candle or the current candle. Let's get it for the last candle, and we get these values. So once we have these values, then we can go down to the bottom, and here we create functions for moving average. We're calling it the price versus moving average filter. You can call it whatever. And we're going to send it, and we're going to send to it the value of the fast moving average that we have just calculated and the slow moving average. And then we're going to just check if the fast moving average is above slow moving average, then we return above. And then if the fast moving average is below slow moving average, then we return below. And in case there is something wrong with the calculation, return the value of error. And we are creating this function as a string function because we're going to return the value of above or below, which is text. Then we create another string function because we want it to return the value of above or below as a string. So we're creating it as a string. And we're going to send to it the value of the symbol, the Senko span A, Senko span B, Tenkan-sen, and Kijun-sen line. And inside, we're going to get the ask value, and I'm going to close the parenthesis because here is the open parenthesis, so we need a closing parenthesis. Here, we're going to get the ask value by using the symbol info double for that symbol that we're sending here. And this is why we didn't have to send it here, because we just sent the moving average values and then we could check. But here, we need to get the ask value, so we need to have we need the symbol value as well. So we're going to send the symbol value. So we check with the symbol value for the ask. And then if the filter type is 0, which is the price is above the cloud, then we check that if the ask is both above Senko span A and Senko span B, then it's above the cloud. So in that case, return above. And if it's below the Senko span A and Senko span B, then it's below the cloud. So then return below. The same way we can check the next 4 filters, which is if ask is greater than Tenkan-sen, then return above. In case the user has selected the filter type as 1, which is that Tenkan-sen is above the cloud, or if Kijun-sen is above the cloud, or if ask is above only the Senko span A, or if ask is only above, or if the price is only above the Senko span B, so return above and return below if it's below. Then the next filter type is if Tenkan-sen is above the Kijun-sen line. So we check if Tenkan-sen is above Kijun-sen, then return above. Tenkan-sen below Kijun-sen, then return below. And this way we do it for the rest. So for condition number 6, so for selection number 6, which was here, that Tenkan-sen is above Kijun-sen and they're both above the cloud. We check for selection option 6 that if Tenkan-sen is above Kijun-sen, Kijun-sen is above Senku-span A, and Kijun-sen is above Senku-span B. Because if Kijun-sen is above the cloud and Tenkan-sen is above Kijun-sen, it is also above the cloud. So return above, otherwise below. Then for selection like 7, if Tenku-span is above the cloud, if Kijun-sen is above the cloud, and if none of them is true, then just return the value of in cloud. I mean, you could return error, you could return anything, but it's in cloud. I'm returning because here the ask price or the price could be not above the cloud and not below the cloud, but can also be in the cloud. Tenkan-sen versus Kijun-sen, it's either going to be above or below. I mean, the chances of it actually having exactly the same values are really slim. And then we come back up here where we were sending the orders. And here, once the conditions are met, we can very quickly check that if the MA filter is on, because we are going for a buy. So if the MA filter is on and the return of the price versus moving average is not equal to above, so it's error or it's below, then in that case, we know the condition is not met for the filter. So in that case, return, meaning exit the entire function, don't do anything else. And then if Ichimoku filter is on, then we need to check with the price versus Ichimoku, what value is returned versus whatever has been selected by sending it the values that we need to send to that function, which is symbol Senku-span A, Senku-span B, Tenkan-sen, Kijun-sen, that we assign here. And then if the value is not above, so it comes back either as below or as in cloud, then we're not interested in buy. And in that case, return, don't do anything else, don't send the order. So even though these conditions are true, but if the filter is on and the filter condition is not met, then also we return, we don't open the trade. And then the same thing we're going to do here, that after these sell conditions have been met, we're very quickly going to check if the MA filter is on and the value returned by the price versus moving average filter is not equal to below, because we want below, then in that case return. And then in case of Ichimoku filter on, again, exactly like above, here, we're going to check whether the value returned is below. And if it's not below, then we're just going to exit the function. We're not going to send the sell order, even though these conditions are met. So this is how we create these filters. And this completes our EA. If I compile it now, I don't have any errors at all. And we have already checked that the EA was working correctly before we applied these filters. Now, these filters I've applied in both of the EAs that I released before. So I'm pretty confident that these are also going to work. But in case if they don't work, then I'm going to update in the comment section below if there is any error. But for the sake of time, if I run the entire test, it's going to take very long to check every condition because Ichimoku conditions are way too many to check. So this concludes our coding. Now back again, because it's a reversal strategy. So with the filters on higher time frames, you're not going to get many trades. These filters are going to be useful when you're running lower time frames like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes chart, because checking against the daily chart for the filter, at least you know the direction of the trend on a higher time frame. And this way, even though you're going against the trend on a lower time frame, on a higher time frame, you're still continuing the trade with the trend. I will very quickly run just one test. So here in the input tab, now you see all of the filters applied as well. So let's go make this Ichimoku true. And we are interested when Tenkan-sen is above Kijun-sen, which again is my favorite. And this is why I'm selecting this. And then we go back to the settings. So we're GBP USD on 5 minutes chart. And here we also have 5 minutes time frame. And we are going the Tenkan-sen above Kijun-sen, the Ichimoku filter on a daily chart as well. So I'll quickly run that, but I will remove the other currency. So we're only going to run it on GBP USD. So here we are on GBP USD. I'll speed up the test a little bit because I'm interested in. So here is our buy on the 4 standard deviation Bollinger lower. For now, the TP is going to be set on the 4 standard deviation because remember in the function itself, we started with Bollinger as a TP. But then later in the trail stop loss, we're going to switch it from this to that. And if I look at the GBP USD, the Tenkan-sen line is above the Kijun-sen line, and this is why this trade was enabled. So if I run it, now let's look for, so here is the sell because Tenkan-sen was below the Kijun-sen here. Tenkan-sen is still below Kijun-sen, so we're opening sell trades. Tenkan-sen is below Kijun-sen, so we're again opening up sell trades. And now it still is below. I'm going to wait for it to come up. So now it is above the Tenkan-sen line. So now we are opening up buy trades. So the values are working. So I'm going to stop the test. So on a lower time frame, like 5 minutes and 15 minutes, my advice would be to use the filters, either the moving average filter or the Ichimoku filter, so that at least on a higher time frame, you are trading with the trend, while on a lower time frame, you might be going against the trend. If you apply the EA to 1 hour or 4 hour chart, then the chances are, unless you set the filter on weekly, the chances are you're not going to get too many trades. If you go with a combination of 1 hour chart with 4 hour, you might end up with no trades at all. So this is it, guys. I strongly suggest for you guys to follow the video and code it yourself because like I said before, an EA is like a machine gun. Unless you know how it works, you might end up actually hurting yourself. Do know what the codes are and how they work. But if you do decide to download it from the store for a small donation, at least even then, follow the coding, understand the coding, so you can apply it in the best possible way. Now I have another dozen EAs that I will be releasing exactly in the same way, but it takes like 10 days to capture the video, structure it, make it. So it's going to be a slow process. What I would emphasize once again as a closing remark is it's a portfolio of EAs. At a certain point in time, some will work, some will not work. But as long as more are working, more are making money than the ones losing the money, probably the rule of averages will balance it out. Test the EAs thoroughly. But before I go, once again, to emphasize that this EA is a reversal strategy. So when there is something wrong with the market, you have early indications, like we have already spoken, like the geopolitical situation in Europe that developed in 2022 or the COVID period of 2021. Those are periods that you would know well in advance that something is going to happen in the market and you have no idea. In my books, one should avoid those periods altogether. But more importantly so for reversal strategies, because when the market is going to go in one direction in these situations, it might not come back. So trade with care, do test thoroughly to your satisfaction before you apply to live account. Stay safe and trade safe.